Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Roberto Corona. I'm an Italian anthroposopher and astrologer. And in this video, we're going to talk about the upcoming full moon in Aries on October 7, a moon with very strong martial traits, also as we will see from a spiritual perspective. Now with this moon, we officially enter the autumn season and we're starting to leave behind the last and very intense eclipse season. Now, according to anthroposophy, during fall, the forces of Michael the Archangel, ascendant to the rank of Archai, intensify in the cosmos. And in particular, Michael's impulse allows us to connect with the solar forces capable of defeating and keeping evil at bay, something we clearly need very much during these challenging times. And since we are publishing this video right on September 29, we wish everyone a happy Michaelmas, the festival of courage and freedom, and celebration of the victory of the solar forces of the heart, defeating darkness and freeing the human soul. Now, this is the chart of the full moon in Aries. Let's start, as always, with the latest changes in the sky. On September 22nd, the day after the eclipse, Mars enters Scorpio, its nocturnal domicile. Here it is. And on the same day, we had the fall equinox with the Sun entering Libra. Lastly, on October 6th, Mercury is going to join Mars in Scorpio, as you can see here in the chart. Now, this is the chart of a full moon, and this means that we reach the peak, the culmination of the manifestation process of the life forces of the earth that we call the etheric forces. And in particular, that process, which started with the last new moon in Virgo on September 21, which, as you know, was an eclipse. And this means that we haven't completely escaped their influence yet. So, in general, a full moon is a moment of retrospect, of reviewing the past, as the light of the full moon is shed in the darkness of the night, and it is also a time for awareness and revelations, especially with this moon, but also release and purification. With this moon, the gestation of new impulses begins, which will be sown with the next new moon in Libra, happening on October 21, and by then, the influence of eclipse season will be gone. Moving on to the chart, the full moon is located at 14 degrees and 8 minutes Aries, here it is, in the starry image of Pisces. Now, the opposing luminaries are quite isolated in the chart, as you can see, so they don't create many aspects. And from this perspective, we can definitely take a good look at the ruler of the moon, which in this case is Mars, because the moon is in Aries and Mars is the ruler of Aries. And Mars, as we mentioned, is down here transiting through Scorpio. Now, being in his domicile, it is a very strong Mars, which, as you can see, is also in a loose conjunction with Mercury, which, however, is an applying conjunction, meaning that it will gradually gain strength in the following days. And in this regard, as you can see, Mercury is making a square with Pluto in Aquarius. So this square definitely stands out. Finally, we note the rather isolated sextile between the benefics, Jupiter, here's Jupiter, and Venus. It is isolated, so they are not making any aspects with the main planets of the syzygy. However, there's a very interesting features because both the benefics are aligned with two interesting fixed stars. Jupiter is basically in conjunction to Pollux. This is Pollux, the head of the immortal twin that you can see up here. It is a star of the nature of Mars, a challenging star. And Venus is aligned here, as you can see, with the nebula, and the nebula is the tail of the Lion constellation, a star of the nature of Venus and Saturn. So let's now tackle the meanings of the chart, starting as always from the physical significations. Now, this is a full moon, so it is all about reviewing the past, and with these energies in particular, this is most likely going to lead to also major revelations, because this is what a full moon does, right? So this means that we're beginning with this moon to understand what happened really during eclipse season, right? Because this is the full moon revealing the last eclipse, which was the new moon, the seed of this eclipse. Now, this revelation is also confirmed by the wide conjunction that, again, is still effective between Mercury and Mars, because here Mercury is, in the myth, basically Mercury was the only god capable of coming and going freely from the Hades, the realm of Pluto, the underworld, which is represented by the zodiac sign of Scorpio. And here we have a Mercury that penetrates into the mysteries, basically. Mars, on the other hand, is the god of war that here comes with all the courage to face and confront the deepest darkness, to seek and destroy all harmful, nasty evil that lurks in these unconscious. Now, this means that from a psychological standpoint, we're dealing with, in general, disclosures, revelations, which may concern also the secret services or documents that are going to be declassified as well, but also scandals and revelations concerning political or financial intrigues. And in fact, through the sign of Scorpio, banks, the financial and insurance sectors are both involved. Now, the underlying theme, however, remains that of Aries, being this, of course, a full moon in Aries. And Aries is all about war and conflict. And for this reason, such news could be real weapons, weapons of propaganda, or also defamation. And in this sense, the square between Mercury in Scorpio and Pluto in Aquarius can definitely represent a public opinion that doesn't buy it anymore, since Aquarius is the zodiac sign of transparency, and by definition, it makes a square to Scorpio, which is the most opaque sign of the zodiac. Now, from a psychological standpoint, the full moon in Aries affects our emotions mainly through the Aries emotion, right? Which is anger. And in this sense, Mars and Mercury in Scorpio both offer great courage and analytical ability to face and understand our shadows, to recognize them and to work on them. In particular, we must recognize the shadows that the current collective situation is bringing out in us, so as not to become entangled in them or being devoured by them. In this sense, the sextile between the benefics, which again is very isolated up here, provokes us to reflect, since two fixed stars are involved that are by no means simple. Now, Jupiter, in fact, is conjunct Pollux. Pollux is a martial, warlike, at times dangerous star traditionally associated with poisons. And here is activated by a benefic planet, by an attempt to do good, because Jupiter in Cancer wants to do good, right? On the other hand, we have Venus, which is on the nebula, the tail of the starry Leo, which, although the nebula comes with the nature of Venus, it is a Venusian star, also features the nature of Saturn and can ultimately lead to misfortune. Now, in my opinion, this indicates that when an external action, even if it is apparently good, right? If this action is not accompanied by conscious inner work, it does not necessarily bear fruit, especially if it acts as a sort of mask for our unresolved shadows And this action is done primarily to feel good and to avoid actually working on ourselves. Lastly, from a more spiritual perspective, the full moon shines in the starry image of Pisces. This is the constellation of Pisces, which is very big. Now, in astrosophy, this constellation is the constellation of the Trinitarian principle of the Father and of the spiritual hierarchy of the thrones, which Steiner calls the spirits of will, a will that in this case, we can say, is definitely martial, with Mars located here at the feet of the Virgin. Now, the feet of the Virgin, unfortunately, is an area always associated with the forces of evil. In fact, we can think about Eve and Eve's heel threatened by the Edenic snake. It is an area where the woman clothed in the sun of the apocalypse tramples the deviated lunar forces behind her. And it is precisely the area from which the sulfurous vapors rise at the end of summer, thus creating the image of the Ahrimanic dragon. So in short, here Mars doesn't represent something very good. Here Mars represents the ambiguous archangel of Mars, Archangel Samael, whose name means poison of God, who, this archangel, according to the will of the Father, because in a sense it is a test, so according to the will of the Father, tempts us in order to see where we're going and in order to realize what we're doing, right? So this is clearly a period of testing for humanity, which must work out its own karma, being, by the way, the law of karma, the law of the Father, which we remember, the Father principle, is also called by Neoplatonists the One or the Supreme Good. So it is not like a father that wants to boss us around. It is the one principle of all good. And this is important in order to understand that all this is ultimately for our good, right? As always, thanks for watching. If you want to support my work, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell not to miss out on future astrological insights. I am Roberto Corona. See you in the next video.